The Chicago Bears are going to have some offseason moves to make next year, and there are a lot of contracts that can be dropped and a lot of players that the Bears can afford to move on from. Today, in episode number 104 of Uncut, we're going to be highlighting three of those players that we think need to go in 2021. So let's hop right into it. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Beared Down Uncut. We talk everything Bears every day of the week here. The double upload streak did break for one day, but we're still going pretty strong. Trying to get 2 videos up for you guys a day on YouTube. Also getting podcasts up 5 times a week on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So even though things are going bad and it is tough to make content, we are still trying to trudge our way through here and make content. So I am your host, Chris Malpe, today to talk about some players that we believe shouldn't be on the team in 2021. I'm joined with my co-hosts, Parth and Jaylen McClinton to the right of me. Guys, what's going on?
Nothing much. Just a Wednesday afternoon, I guess. Had one class, so got that done real quick and just been relaxing all day.
Yeah, same here. I was just talking to Chris about how I made a Bulls channel, so I'm probably gonna be working on that after this is over. But I'm just been chilling, Bulls come back on Friday, so that's probably the most thing that's got me excited other than the Bears playing. But that's about it.
Yeah, and once that Bulls channel does come out for Jaylen, we'll link in the description, and you guys can hopefully check that out as Jaylen's mic's going crazy. But today we're here to talk about 3 players we don't think should be on the Bears in 2021. We've got 1 offensive, 1 defensive, and 1 special teams player. So we're going to start with the offensive player, and I'm going to hand off the floor here to Parth.
So I'm going to start off with the offensive line. I think a player on the offensive line, everyone knows him, Charles Leno Jr. He's struggled heavily the last couple of years. Ever since the Bears signed him to that massive contract, he's been playing pretty bad. In 2019, he allowed 5 sacks and 13 penalties, the 5th most penalties in the National Football League as an offensive lineman. And then in 2020, he's already given up 5 sacks. And this year he only has 4 penalties, but there's been times where he's given up lots of pressures. We saw it with Nick Foles, especially when, guys would basically run right past Charles Leno. He struggled in the run game as well. The Bears haven't been able to get that run game going this year. I guess the last 2 games we have, but that's because of bringing in Sam Mustipher and Alex Bars, in my opinion. But Charles Leno has been probably one of our worst offensive linemen on the team. Lots of penalties the last 2 years, like I said, and I think he's just inconsistent. I think Chris can agree with me on that. He's been up and down all year, and I just feel like the Bears can, bring in much better tackle through the draft. If we look at the draft this year, there's a lot of good tackles out there, a lot of good offensive linemen in the later rounds. If the Bears do draft a quarterback early, I think the number one thing we have to do is improve the offensive line, and keeping Charles Leno on the team definitely does not help improve that offensive line. I think he's someone who's definitely gone in 2021.
Yeah, and that's a good one that you bring up, Charles Leno. I mean, personally, looking at it for me, I like the interior of the offensive line the Bears have. Obviously, Sam Mustipher, I think you mentioned him earlier, was a great find by Ryan Pace. Whether or not Pace is here in 2021, I think that was a great find. And I think he could continue developing and could be a starting center down the road for us. Cody Whitehair hasn't been great, if we're being completely honest. I think his game's fallen off a little bit, but he is one of the least of our worries. And then when James Daniels comes back healthy, I think he's going to be great. The question is, I do think the Bears look to move on from at least one of the offensive tackles. The question is, do they look to move on from Massey and Leno? Both of them recently signed extensions. I think Massey's been a little bit better. But Jaylen, what do you think in regards to the offensive line? Do you think Leno is a Bear past this season?
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show begins. If we had to release somebody on the offensive line, it's either him or Massey. Both of these tackles have severely underperformed since we paid them these huge contracts. And I with the limited cap space we already have and all the money tied into the defense, I definitely feel like that one of those tackles will be gone. Whether it be Leno or Massey, I'll be happy with either.
And I think depending on what happens with Allen Robinson, say the Bears bring in a new GM, Robinson agrees to play on the franchise tag and stays a Bear. I think that's the ideal situation at this point. Then the Bears can look to add some free agent tackles as well as probably 2 of their first 3 draft picks in the 2021 draft. So that's intriguing as well. But if not, I would hope that the Bears can draft hopefully a tackle within those first 3 rounds and hopefully find someone who could step in and play. So we're going to head on to the defensive player now. Jaylen McClinton, the floor is yours, my friend.
He's giving up. He has 124.0 passer rating. That's 9th worst for CBs. 76.7 completion percentage. That's 10th worst. 167 yak yards allowed and 5 heats allowed, which is 5th worst for the CBs. And if the Bears release him this offseason, we have a $5 million cap hit. I just feel like he's getting old up there in age. We already have I wouldn't say very good, but we have young nickel corners behind him like a Duke Shelley, who we drafted in the 6th round last year in 2019, and then Kendall Vidor, who's a very versatile DB who we drafted in the 5th round this year. So, he's like I said, he hasn't played well. Last week he was getting cooked by Marvin Jones, by their rookie Quintez Cephas. Like he did not have a very good game. He hasn't played well. Like I said, since the Tennessee Titans game. And with a $5 million cap hit, that money could go towards a person that really is huge on offense or defense, rather that be a James Daniel contract extension or Allen Robinson, who we've struggled to re-sign him. So, that's who I'm going to go with.
Yeah, and it's good that you bring up Screen. I think the downfall for him has been saying that he's the best corner, the best nickel corner in the league after this game. But I think he had a pretty good season up until then. But I got to go ahead and agree with you. Obviously letting Bryce Callahan walk, who currently by Pro Football Focus is the 2nd best rated cornerback in the league behind J.C. Jackson. That's proven to be a bad move. And it's hurting more than the Bears moving on from Adrian Amos back after the 2018 season. And I think Screen is definitely someone who we could see walk after this season. So, Parth, I'm going to pass it around to you now. I mean, we've talked about Screen. We made a video about him a couple of weeks ago. But is there any chance with how much the Bears can gain from moving on from him that you see him back in a Bears uniform for his 3rd season?
I honestly don't. I hope he's not either. I mean, the last 2 games, we see the quarterbacks taking advantage of him almost every other play. If they line, like the Packers, they lined up, I was going to say DeAndre Hopkins, but Devontae Adams against Screen as much as they could, and they took advantage of that all game. And I think the Detroit Lions did the same. Whenever they could find the matchup on Buster Screen, they exposed it. And I think he is the biggest weak link on this defense, and that definitely needs to be improved.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the special teams player, just a quick answer from you guys. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but if the Bears do replace Screen with someone who's in-house, just a one-word answer from both of you. Who would you rather it be, Shelley or Vildor?
Vildor.
Yeah, we're 3 for 3 there, as we were a couple of weeks ago. But I'm going to take my 2 friends here out, and we're going to move on to my special teams player now. This should come as no shock to anyone. I'm actually going to go with Eddy Pineiro. Let's take a look at Cairo Santos and how he's done ever since the Bears have brought him in 2020. He's 23 for 24 on extra points. The only miss he has on an extra point was one that was blocked by the Detroit Lions last week. So you can't really blame him so much for that. He's also 19 for 21 on field goals in 2020. I believe that percentage is, let me calculate it quickly here. That is 90.1% or 90.4%. And that's going to be easily, if he finishes out the season with those numbers, the best kicking mark that the Bears have had ever since they let Robbie Gould go back in 2016. It's unfortunate for Pinero because I think he was all right last year. 23 for 28 on field goals. That's 82.1%. Also 27 for 29 on extra points, 93.1%. I just don't know if I could trust him coming back as my kicker because of all the groin injuries he's suffered since he entered the league, or since he entered the Bears' organization with Hallis Hall. That groin has proven time and time to be an issue. Last year, there were some times where he was out there on the field and we could tell that he was still hurt. And it's continued to bother him. He's been on IR the entire season. And I think it's pretty obvious that the Bears have no plans of activating him from IR this season, especially with how Santos has played. The question becomes, will they bring him back as competition for Santos, or will they move on from him because they're not paying him a ton? But personally, I think you want to lock down Santos. And with that, kudos to Cairo Santos. He's rejuvenated his career in the league. But with that, if you want to lock him down and not make the same mistake you made with Robbie Gould, letting a very good kicker go, you're going to have to pay him a lot of money. And I think Eddy Pineiro probably would lose his roster spot if that were the case. So before we close this one off, we're going to talk a little bit about Eddy Pineiro. He hasn't been brought up on this show in weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks because he's basically gone radio silent on the Bears. So Parth, I'm going to start with you. I mean, obviously, it could be interesting if the Bears brought him in next year to provide some competition with brought him in for some competition with Cairo Santos, but it seems like his time in Chicago is all but done after a very impressive 2020 season from Santos. So do you see him returning in 2021?
I don't, especially if Santos keeps up the way he's been kicking. He's been incredible. 2 years ago, the worst position on our team was kicker, and now I think that's one of the best positions on the team. A quick turnaround. Cody Parkey did, hurt us a lot at that position, but I think Cairo Santos, he's been playing well. He had a really good couple years of stretch kicking in Kansas City. I remember that, and now he's here in Chicago. I think he's been kicking well, even through the tough wind we have here in Soldier Field. He's been playing well, and I'm excited for Cairo.
Yeah, it should be interesting to also see how he kicks through the rest of the month. I think the Bears have 2 more home games, Houston this upcoming weekend, as well as Green Bay in Week 17, and that'll continue to tell the tale about him. But he seemed to kick well in Soldier Field, which is something nice that you're noting. I personally think Santos probably should be up there in Pro Bowl votes for the kicker. I mean, he's kicking at above 90%. He's only missed 1 extra point on a block. He's made 16 consecutive field goals. I haven't mentioned that yet, but he's been absolutely wonderful, and I think he's going to be in Chicago for quite a long time. So, Jaylen, before we close this one out, what are your thoughts on Cairo Santos this season so far, and do you think we see Eddy Pineiro back in 2021?
So for Cairo, it took me a couple weeks to be fully committed to him because, he was coming off a hamstring injury just like Pinero was. That's why he's been struggling to stay on the team these last couple seasons. So I was very iffy of him. I wanted him do it, consistently before I give him the starting spot over Pinero, who, he had his ups and downs last year. I think he kicked for like 81%. And, he missed a couple kicks here and there. But in his second season with the Bears, getting used to Soldier Field, I thought he was going to have a better season than he did last year. But he got caught with another injury, and I'm pretty much think that lost him his starting spot as an NFL kicker on the Bears team. So I'm very happy on Cairo, being able to consistently kick the ball. I think all Bears fans, every time we see a kicker go out there, our heart, skips a beat, in my opinion. Like I've been nervous the last couple seasons when the Bears kicker goes out there. But with Cairo, every time he goes out there, it's basically money, and I haven't had to worry about that. So definitely like he should be on the Bears in 2021. And for Pinero, I think he stays until next year's training camp to give Carroll some competition, but I think Carroll has a starting spot over him for the next couple of seasons, or to prove otherwise.
Yeah, and I've probably trusted Carroll ever since he made the game-winning 37-yarder against the Buccaneers, as well as the 55-yarder at the halftime bell against the Panthers. He's been really impressive, and I'm sure we'll make a video in the future about him and his Pro Bowl hopes. I'm sure we'll make a video soon about all the Bears we think should make the Pro Bowl. That'll probably be coming out later this week, actually, now that I just thought of it. But those are the 3 Bears that we could see not being on the team in 2021. Once again, to recap it for you guys: Buster Skrine, Charles Leno Jr., as well as Eddy Pineiro. So that'll pretty much do it for us, guys. Thank you so much for listening into episode number 104 of Uncut. If you want more content from us, head over to our website, beareddown.com. We're getting you guys ready with columns, articles, and blogs for the Bears' Week 14 matchup with the Houston Texans, and we're still going to post content throughout the rest of the year as well as the offseason, no matter how rough it does get. If you would like to find the podcast on social media, we're at Beared Down on Instagram and Twitter, doing a Christmas giveaway very soon, probably within 2 weeks, giving out a couple of cool items to you guys. We always want to give back to you guys as much as possible, so those giveaways will be free to enter, and we will announce them on our social media pages. So finally, before I close this one out, all of our social media is down in the description as well, Instagram and Twitter. Follow us all on both of those platforms. It's a great way to connect with us. We're active on all those platforms, and it's just a great follow as well. Parth, Jaylen McClinton, it seems like the trend of these videos continue to get negative, but as this team kind of barrows downhill, it seems tough not to make videos like these. So any last words?
Yeah, it is tough to not make videos like these. The team is on a 6-game losing streak, so I guess, it's one of the worst years I think I've had as a Bears fan, but I love covering the team, so the grind does not stop.
I have to disagree with Price statement right there. I watched this team go 3-13. So
I agree, but I knew that team was going to win 3 games.
Yeah,
I did not think this team was going to go 6.
I knew that team was going to suck.
5-1 to 5-7.
I agree. I thought this team was going to be way better than where we're at right now. But yeah. I kind of agree with that statement. I didn't think we were going to go. But other than that, bear down. I guess we play the Texans. We're 0-2 when we stream, so I think it's another bad luck, or it's just the Bears playing bad.
Yeah, but taking a look at the Bears' playoffs, I saw something earlier today on Twitter that said throughout the last, I believe, 12 or 13 seasons, the Bears have started the season off with a winning record in 8 or 9 of them, and haven't made the playoffs in any of those years that were specifically mentioned. I mean, obviously they took out 2018, 2010, 2012, and some of those years. But you know what? I guess what I've learned from this season is you can never trust the Bears when they start off well. The team's got to be nitty and gritty throughout and get through the thick patch of things before you can really put hope into them heading towards the playoffs. But I'm getting a little off track, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to be your host once again. My name is Chris Malpe. We will be back later tonight with 3 key matchups in Texans versus Bears, so be sure to look out for that one. And that's pretty much it for us, guys. As always, do us a favor and stay safe and bear down. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.